Welcome to episode 21 of the Hike or Die Outdoor Adventure podcast. I'm here with my fantastic outdoor buddy, Craig. How are you, mate?
G'day. Good, mate. Yep.
Craig, how long do you think you could live out in the wilderness without matches?
Yeah, I know where you're going with that. Not a year, I don't think so.
Yeah, I was hoping you weren't going to try and say you could do a year.
No.
Our guest today on the podcast is Claire Dunn, author of My Year Without Matches. We've talked about it on the podcast before. It's about time we delivered. It's a fantastic interview. See you on the other side. Thank you, as always, to our regular podcast sponsors for their support. Topo Maps Plus, a phone application that allows you to view topographical maps, track your location, even without cell phone coverage. Go deeper into the backcountry. Rios floating polarized sunglasses with 100% UV protection for the love of water. Bluey Merino, Australian superfine merino wool base, mid and top layer garments. Where our story ends, yours is just beginning. Caribee, one of Australia's leading backpack, travel and outdoor brands. They supply us with dry bags, waterproof day packs and expedition bags. Supporting our sponsors allows us to continue to produce this podcast, so please jump online and check out what they have to offer. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining us again. Craig, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm really good, thanks. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I've been keeping very, very busy. What about yourself?
Yes, really busy. Busy in the office, I'm afraid. So I am, really glad that we've just had a really decent chat with Claire about getting outdoors and embracing the wild. So, yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it was a fantastic chat. But unfortunately, you have to listen to us for a while before you get to that gold. Hey, Craig, our little baby is 21 today.
Oh, that's good.
21.
That's great.
21th episode.
21th.
This is the 21st episode, which is pretty huge for us. I'm pretty happy with that, mate. Yourself?
Oh, I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Last year we pumped out 10 episodes.
10 last year, and so obviously 11.
This is number 11.
For this year.
We're going for gold. We still will be giving you one more as a very, very sweet and generous Christmas gift to you all. That's my word. If we don't get that one out, I'll regret that saying that.
You will, Santa, yes.
Yes, I will. Santa did not come. I've been doing a fair bit of woodwork, finishing up a workbench I made. I'm making installing an outdoor bath and shower.
Oh, nice.
It's summer here, just for you guys, on the other side of the world. And I always find myself doing work in the garden or cutting down trees or whatever, and then, having nowhere to kind of wash off. So that'll be pretty good for the neighbours too.
You love getting nude in the backyard?
Yeah, don't mind it. Don't mind it at all. It's all good. I got a few axes to restore, so I got to get the workbench done just so I got a bit more space. And I've been building an attic now. Going back to my earlier comment about it being really hot, it's the stupidest time to build an attic.
In the roof.
But it just happened to work out like that. So I got to deal with it. I just go up really early in the morning and do about an hour and a half, and then I'm toasted, quite literally, and I get out of there. But it's going well. It's going to be my pleasure room.
So to speak.
It's going to be full of all my hiking gear and everything.
All right.
It's going to be legit. You'll see pictures.
Is that legit what it's for? You've been talking about this.
Yeah, no.
That's where you're going to...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There'll be a few other things up there, like the Christmas tree that you only use once a year. Maybe a few files and stuff like that. But predominantly, no, it'll be a pretty well organised hiking gear, little sanctuary up there.
That's good.
because it just takes up too much room in the house, and I don't like to put it in the shed because of, every time you pull it out, it'll be full of gecko crap. So yeah, I want to avoid that. So I'm building a proper room upstairs, which is pretty rare. I mean, for Australians to even have an attic, it's pretty rare. But it seems like they're pretty much an in thing in the States.
Oh, yeah, I'm jealous. I've always wanted. I had a manhole occasionally, like in another house that, we did used to stuff some stuff up there, but having a proper
this has got pull down steps and everything
with a little room up there.
Yeah. It's not little, man. It's bigger than this studio.
Big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
You can't stand up in it, but it's bigger. It's got a bigger floor space than this.
Oh, that makes sense. Perfect sense, man.
When I finally get it done, it'll probably take me a few more months to get electricity put up there, and I'm insulating it as well, so it won't get affected by the heat, so all the hiking gear is safe. And Sweet. I've been working on the solo hiking video from that last hike that I did, and that's actually almost finished, like real close. Just doing final tweaks on it, and I'll get it out there. That'll be another fantastic Christmas gift for y'alls.
Hey, I did watch your video.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
God, thanks very much.
Yeah. No, it was good. The dungeon. Yeah.
The dungeon. Yeah.
Looked like you were working hard, mate. Really.
I was actually working hard. I was just thinking today that I haven't been back there since, and I've only done a bit of running locally, and I don't think I'll be able to pull off that time unless I get back there. And it's just too hot, man. It's just too hot.
It is crazy hot.
Stupidly hot. I'd have to be up there at sort of 4 a.m. starting my run, but still the humidity's up by 5:30, and I'd still be in the midst of it.
So hot, and the country's still on fire.
Yeah, well, quite literally. Yep. As you sent me a warning text yesterday saying that just down the road there's a fire from my house. Yeah,
it's a pretty awful year for, summer weather, eh?
Yeah, no, it's not good at all. We just had some nice rain, but it's not enough. On to happier things, mate. News.
Yep.
Have you seen the Cybertruck?
Yes, I have.
Do you like it? I thought you would.
I absolutely loved the launch. I'm sure everyone's talking about it, that the glass broke.
Yeah, I thought they handled that pretty well. What surprised me was that they didn't actually test that before. Because the guy even says, "Are you sure?" And he goes, yeah, go for it. For those of you who haven't seen it, I was impressed when they hit that door with what was it, a hammer or a bat or something?
Yeah, big sledgehammer.
Holy heck, man. It didn't do anything.
So Tesla have released a truck, and it looks awesome.
Yeah, it says here it's kind of like, when you have a look at it, in parts it's like a utility vehicle, like we call it a ute over there. It's almost like a pickup truck. And I don't know if that's a completely separate version of it, but
there it is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's got the tailgate, and then there's even a no, not that one. There's even a kind of a camping version. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Haven't you?
I haven't seen half this stuff you're showing me. That's cool.
Yeah, look at that.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So you can pop the back up, and you've got.
What? You
can sleep in the back there with a little netting and.
No, I only watched like a 5 minute
pull-out kitchen
video of the highlights.
That's pretty cool, eh?
That's cool.
Okay, here's where it gets really cool. Think about your current car, your Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
Single motor rear-wheel drive only.
Yep.
0 to 60 miles per hour, so 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Under 6.5 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
good, isn't it, right?
That's real good.
That's stupidly good. If you've got the dual motor all-wheel drive, that drops to under 4.5 seconds.
Right.
If you've got the tri-motor all-wheel drive, under 2.9 seconds.
What?
I reckon
that's a rocket.
That some people would pass out or throw up at doing that speed. Like, imagine the G-forces in that.
That is so fast.
I know. Anyway, it's pretty cool. It's might be a bit of a weird thing to bring up on a hiking podcast, but it is kind of geared towards that outdoor adventure type of person. They've definitely geared it at that with the kind of optional extras that they're giving you. I like it. It's simple. It's tough. It's fast. I'd say that in the future they might look at more sort of articulation and getting a bit more height in that suspension and everything, making it a little bit more like a four-wheel drive. But hey,
no, you can raise it up.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an aftermarket kit or something.
No, it's got built-in. Look at.
Oh,
go
that's
back,
right. It does, because he said that in the launch.
Look at the front of that.
He said that in the launch. It had independent air suspension. You could actually, I guess, with that pad there inside, you can actually adjust individually, can't you?
Yeah, it'll have
look
so
at that.
much clearance.
It's not dropped anymore. It's pretty cool. It's good and affordable, I would say, when you compare that to you look at the base model of that compared to some of these big pickup trucks getting around in the US, and it's very affordable.
Yeah, all I know is that might be available in 2 years. Is that right? On the roads in a couple of years, is what they said.
Is that right? Yeah, I didn't get that
Order
far.
it now, but I think you might not see it for 2 years.
Yeah, it's fair enough, I guess.
Pretty cool.
No, it's interesting. Still on the subject of four drives, have you seen the Land Rover Technics Lego that they brought out?
The Land Rover Technics.
So Land Rover teamed up with Lego.
Oh, look.
And they've done a Technic, which is the, how would you say? It's the more advanced version of Lego with the moving parts and stuff like that. Now, the interesting thing about this is we could see this as one of those situations where they deliberately have released a toy before another model, because a lot of people are speculating that there's things on this Defender and the shape and everything of it is not actually like the current Defender 90, and that it could be alluding to
haven't you seen
a new model.
Haven't you seen the new Defender?
Yeah, I have. But it's not exactly like that, is it?
No. So the new Defender is pretty cool, but it's not quite got that. That looks awesome, and that's a Lego machine. If I could get that Lego.
You could get it. It's about, it's £160.
Yeah, that's so cheap. So I could afford.
You could afford that.
I could afford that.
It's about as useful as your current four-wheel drive.
Come on, Feds. Knock it off.
It looks good though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's cool. But I saw there was a really interesting team up between them and they had like a lot of these parts are existing parts from other builds, but things like those wheels were specifically designed and manufactured only for this Land Rover build. So that's why there's a bit of speculation around that being a prelude to another model.
Yeah, they might bring out like an amped up version of the new Defender. Is that what you're getting at? That's
yes,
cool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
I thought that was pretty cool. Oh, do you know what a Recali is? Recali? I'd never heard of it before. It's obviously
Doubt it.
It must be some kind of a formal name for a native Australian water rat. It's a pretty big kind of rat thing. See that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Australia's water rats, or Recali.
Oh.
One of Australia's lesser known native rodents. Well, listen to this for a headline. Fight to the death. Image of platypus and Recali stoush. Shocks and surprises. This lady happened to be watching this platypus, and what happens is these water rats and platypus sometimes either share dens, not simultaneously but at different times throughout the year, but they'll also be territorial, so especially the platypus. So they'll fight for their dens.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone kind of thinks the platypus is this cute and cuddly little thing. But
Yeah.
this photograph that she got, and she witnessed this whole situation, was this platypus. They started fighting, and this platypus, ultimately the platypus won, trapping the Ricali underwater for 10 minutes, after which it ceased to struggle and died. The platypus then returned to its burrow. So I think it's just amazing how you can think you know wildlife, or think the typical kind of perception of what we see all the time from a platypus, and then all of a sudden this modern technology is kind of bringing these images and footage to us of them acting in very strange ways. Well, not strange ways for them, in ways that we didn't perceive that was possible.
Yeah, that changes the game a bit, eh?
It's pretty cool, eh? I mean, not cool for the Ricali. But yeah, it was a fight outside the entrance of a burrow.
Platypus have got talons on them that can probably...
They've got kind of claws on their webbed. It says here that it was forcefully clutching it with its hind legs.
Really?
Only the male has the poison barbs, though, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, because at first she thought that it might have been a male poisoning it.
Mm.
That's another thing that a lot of people don't know, is that they have these poison barbs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, really interesting. Anyway, what the Ricali was famous for, and this, when I looked up Ricali, so this water rat, this is one of those evolutionary things. So in Australia we have something called a cane toad, which was, long story short, it's an introduced species. We had sugarcane was a massive crop a long time ago in Australia. It was a massive crop. And they accidentally, in bringing, not quarantining things properly, we accidentally brought in this thing called a cane bug, which was, because the cane bug was introduced as well, wasn't it? It's not native. So this bug was just tearing through and destroying all these crops. So they had this fantastic idea that they would bring these toads over to Australia and release them, and that release them in the cane fields, and the toads would eat all the cane bugs, and everyone would live happily ever after. But what happened was the cane toads realized that there was so many other things worth eating and so much easier prey than the cane bugs that they breed at a ridiculously alarming rate.
Mm.
So getting back to my point is, a lot of native animals were dying because they were coming into contact with these toads that have poisonous glands on their back, poisonous skin. Only just recently have we started to see crows are starting to be smart enough to flip them over and eat them from the underside. Have you seen instances of that?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So they've basically gone, okay, that's not working. Everyone's dying when they try and pick up a toad or eat it from the back. So they've worked out a way of flipping it over. A very similar thing happened with the Ricali, and I remembered that when I looked at this. But there's even footage there of this water rat is basically adapted as well, and realized that there's really good eating in these toads, and they're plentiful. If you just flip them over and eat them from the underside, you can actually consume the meat without. Now, humans, do not try this. Do not try this. You will die. But these animals are getting away with it, and I think that's awesome, because what it means is it's actually a very, very slim chance that natives might start to work out how to deal with these and use them as a food source. The more they use them as a food source, the more they wipe them out.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It helps anyway.
Yeah, they're a pest.
All right, on to a feel-good story. Listen to this headline, Craig. It says it all. This 89-year-old grandma and her grandson are visiting all of the national parks, and they're about to start the final stretch.
Oh.
There's a great picture here of,
Cool.
what's his name? Does it say his name? Brad. Brad and his grandmother, Joy. Look at her.
Yeah.
She looks fit as a fiddle. She's very small, fit as a fiddle. And it says in the article that he knew, so Brad, the grandson, knew that his grandmother had regrets about not travelling more throughout her life. And after he hiked the Appalachian Trail, his grandmother was really, expressed some interest in it and said, I would love to have tried camping too. And so Brad basically decided to start talking to her about starting to hit up some trails, and they got stuck into it.
That's good.
So today she's 89 years old and she's seen 49 national parks. That's every single one in the lower 48. She and Brad have seen elk, humpback whales, grizzlies, and moose, her favourite animal, the humble prairie dog. And they're not done yet. In December, they plan to hit the road again with the goal of ticking off Alaska and Hawaii's parks. Hey, that's very similar to that story in the last podcast, except that lady was bagging the peaks as well. These guys are visiting the parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's just awesome.
That is a good news story, mate.
Yeah, I love the... Grandma says that her grandson is her best friend and my buddy.
Oh, sweet.
She hopes that her journey will inspire older people, encouraging them to travel. Treasures are hidden in these parks. Every park is different, and every park has a different treasure. Never wait to do tomorrow what you can do today. Good on you, Grandma. That's really good advice. That's cool. I love that story.
Yeah, good on you, mate. That is cool.
Gear talk, mate.
All right.
Let's keep it moving.
Keep it
moving. What would you say if I said marshmallow crossbow? Look at that beast.
Oh. Jeez.
I don't know what the practical implications of it are. I just think it's really fun.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So you stick a marshmallow in this crossbow and it's got a little wooden trigger and it fires it out. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can actually purchase these online in the States.
And tasty.
Yeah. You see that marshmallows aren't as big in Australia as they are, especially in the camping community. Do you know what a s'more is? Or a s'more? S'more? Do you know what that is?
Not right now, but I have heard about it. What is it?
Yeah. So, it's going to be so many. We have 63% US listeners, and they're all going to be saying, Tom, you got it wrong, man. But I don't think I'm going to get this wrong. It's when you basically make a sandwich between these biscuits.
Oh, there's a biscuit,
called Graham's crackers. Let me check that, because I really will have people s'mores biscuits. Excuse me. Yeah, they're called Graham crackers. So you have a Graham cracker, and then on top of that you have a little piece of chocolate, and then on top of that you have a marshmallow, and then on top of that you have another Graham cracker.
Is it a melted marshmallow? Is it?
Well, I'm not sure if you melt it before or after, but yeah, it's definitely
heated up.
It's definitely heated up and it melts, and then the whole thing's just a big gooey sweet mess. But I think those Graham crackers are kind of the consistency of those, those digestives biscuits, those sweet wheat kind of biscuits. I think it's similar to that.
Like an arrowroot sort of.
in that ballpark. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's somewhere in that ballpark. Similar.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's questions here like, yeah, it says here that the equivalent in Australia would be something like the digestive biscuit.
Oh, cool.
Macavites. Yeah. Anyway, back to my point. I think you could there's more chance of people firing marshmallows around campsites
In the US.
in the US, yeah. Especially because they've got more relaxed gun laws as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a joke. Yeah, you could. It shoots up to 60 foot, I believe. So you could have a mate 60 feet away, with his mouth open and play little games like try and get the marshmallow in his mouth.
Oh, yeah, in the cup. Yep.
Yep, good fun.
I want one.
You'll also want one of these Demos shovels. Demos Collective make these. Look at this badass shovel. There's a video. He's smashed a log with it. He's hitting snow off the roof. He's digging snow. He's hitting ice. He's got coals in a fire pit.
Yep.
Yeah, but the cool thing about
splitting wood with that.
Well, I don't think that's his primary purpose, but it did it so that I'll show you the Alpha collection. That's what it looks like. It folds up.
All right. Yeah,
Excuse me. Folds up in this really small package. And I watched the video today. I have heard of them before, but they just popped up when I was doing a bit of research, and I thought, that's pretty cool. So it's made of all this kick-ass sort of, in the video they talk about aircraft grade aluminium and all this sort of stuff. And it's got an extendable handle, and it basically becomes a really kick-ass snow shovel, which I thought was timely for our friends in the States at the moment.
Yeah, that's good.
And then if you want to attach it to your vehicle, it has this really cool...
All right.
Why is there not a shot? Oh, here we go. Look at that.
Oh, on the spare tire.
Yeah, on the spare tire.
Yeah, nice.
You could attach it and obviously lock it down with a padlock. So that shovel's always there. Much easier to transport than a full long-handled shovel.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's good.
I thought you'd like that, mate. All right. Are you ready for Tom's Magical Mystery Media mashup? I feel like you should. I was going to mention it in the last episode. I think you should get the banjo out or something and play some banjo, man.
Right now?
Yeah, just as the intro.
Oh,
do that?
Yeah, of course.
He's got beer. He's got banjos. While Craig's tuning that up, I'll start anyway. That sweet sound of the banjo. Welcome to Tom's Magical Media Mashup with your guest Tom. Yeehaw! Oh man, that was ace.
Something like that.
I'm so glad I asked for that.
You'll be sorry.
Do I have to do the whole thing in the hillbilly accent now?
Pretty much.
The next video I want to talk about is called Run the Line. He's putting it back. Craig, I stumbled across this video on YouTube. It's called Run the Line. It's a short film. What is absolutely fantastic about it is through discovering the film, I've discovered this YouTube channel, which is I would say, this is a big call, the best YouTube channel I've found in 2019.
Okay.
That's a big call.
Based on this film, or?
Well, there's this guy called Bo Miles, and he teaches outdoor education. Is it in Melbourne? I don't know why I'm asking you. I think he is in Melbourne.
I've actually seen this video come up, but I haven't clicked on it yet because it's pretty. Is it lengthy? Is it like an hour or something?
No, it's like a 22 minute. It's in the vicinity of a 20-minute short film.
I should watch it. Yeah.
It was People's Choice Award in this year's Port Fairy Adventure Film Festival, which was just recently. And it just introduced me to this guy's entire channel. So first I'll talk about this short film, and then I'll tell you a bit about him. His name's Beau Miles, and he lives in this area where he does a lot of trail running around his house, and he knows the area really well. And there's a particular section of the trail where he runs over and under and along this decommissioned train line from about 60 years prior. And what he decides to do is he does a bit of research and finds some old maps and stuff of the area, and finds out that, he decides that he's going to run the entire... Excuse me, I've been talking way too much tonight. Let me grab a sip of water.
Mm-hmm. So the line is the train line.
Yeah, run the train line. So he decides that he's going to run the whole 43 kilometres of the train line. It ends up being closer to 50, which is over a full marathon.
Marathon, right, yeah.
Because he does he can't actually stay on the line. It goes through like 150 properties or something. So he's jumping fences, and he ends up like the police pull him over and ask about him because he keeps running through people's properties, and he's dressed as this old train driver, and he's carrying a shovel. He carries this long-handled shovel the entire way. He could have done with one of those.
Hang on, how come he's carrying the shovel, and how come he's dressed like a train driver?
He dressed like a train driver because he's a mad dog, and I think he just thought it was funny to. He's running a train line. He dressed like an old train driver.
Sounds like he'd get on with our mate Tom
from
Scotland.
Oh, mate, there's no doubt about it. And he takes the shovel purely because they have a lot of blackberry bushes through the countryside down there, and he knew that there's particular parts where you just weren't going to physically be able to go through without getting ripped to pieces. But I just found it fascinating. He didn't leave the shovel with the crew. He just carried the damn thing for over a whole marathon, and it's a cool story. He is a funny guy. He is a top Aussie bloke, completely down to earth, and just really captivating, man. Like, within a minute or two of watching this video, I thought, I'm hooked, man. I got to watch this whole thing.
Yeah, right.
And then, excuse me, this is going to get more difficult. And then when I went to the channel, I realized that they were all his videos, and he's done a whole bunch of short films, and he just does crazy stuff. Like one time he decided that he was on his way to work, and they were going to make, because he does outdoor education, they were going to make paddles for their canoes. And one of the students said, I can't afford the materials to make a paddle. And he said, all right, I'll prove that, that it can be done on the cheap. And so he got off the train early and walks, a couple of kilometres to work along the train lines and down back alleys and stuff, and keeps putting all these pallets and pickets and all this stuff into his backpack. And by the time he gets to the university, he's got all this timber, and he ends up, in between classes, he ends up putting together this paddle. And I just thought, what a fantastic lesson for those students to show recycling, upcycling, reusing. All of the timber was just junk, or someone else's junk. And you should see the paddle that he made. It was absolutely gorgeous. And he uses it on a trip at the end of the video, and it looks like something you'd pay $200 for. It's beautiful.
Right, so he's got skills.
He's got skills. He's just this wacky guy. This other video that he made.
So this is the channel that it led you to that you're wrapped in.
Yeah, exactly
Righto.
right. So it's actually his channel. His channel is Bo Miles, and there's another.
So he's the guy who's in the movie.
He's the guy
is
that's
he, and
in
he's the
Run the
Aussie
Line.
guy.
He's the Aussie guy.
Oh, okay.
But he's also the same guy that has the channel.
Channel's
They're all his videos.
Sorry, I'm with you now. That's sweet.
And then he, this other one that he does, he lives on this 1 mile loop, and he decides that he's going to run a marathon on this 1 mile loop, but he's going to do it in under 24 hours. But during that, every time he completes a loop or two, he ticks something off the list at home. So he writes this massive list of chores, and in the time that every time he comes back from the loop, he has time to work on a project and then get out of his overalls or back into his shoes, and then off he goes again. And he runs throughout the entire night with a head torch, but he's running along planting trees on the nature strip, like on the sidewalk. And then another time he starts building a outdoor table because he just felt like they had some old timber and he wanted to build this outdoor table. So he just starts building that in between running a mile at a time. It's fascinating. And then he does micro sleeps, like about 20 minutes. And then in the morning he has a coffee and off he goes again and keeps running. And it's just, again, he comes up with these such ridiculous scenarios that he just had me completely captivated. So I'm going to put links to all of that in the show notes on the website, and you can go and check it out for yourself.
Yeah, we'll do. That sounds good.
Another video I stumbled across was check out this little cabin. This guy is an ex-snowboarder, pro snowboarder called, some people might know him, Michael Basic. And he bought this land on top of this mountain, and he decided that he was going to build a cabin there so that he could snowboard basically straight out of his front door in the winter. And all of these rocks, so this video is about him and how he built it and all the features of his house, but all these rocks were on the property, and he split them up and carried them around, and then all the timber he's brought in, and he's built this tiny house around it with a little loft, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, good.
It's absolutely fantastic. And again, sure, it's not hiking related, but it's certainly, if you don't know by now, this is not just a hiking podcast, despite the name.
Mate, it's, that looks like a wild place to be.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the video's put together really nicely to kind of show his thought process and his design process. And again, just another really cool short film about someone living out in the wilderness, which is what I love.
Yeah, projects like that are so remote would be so difficult.
And so organic, the way that he's used those materials from the block.
Because it's kind of got to be, and that's what drives it to be like that.
And the things he talks about, like he's designed, the front's all glass, and the sun comes in the morning and heats up all the rocks inside. And then as the sun moves over the house throughout the day, those rocks radiate heat back in. And he also speaks about things like when he's out there, he does have a small amount of solar panels, and he lives based on, if the sun goes down, he goes to bed because it's conserving energy through those shorter winter days, and he's not staying up late utilising all the electricity. He just kind of goes more with nature's kind of plan.
Yeah, right.
It's good. It's good. It's more than just a little house video. Last one I got for you today is, this one just popped up in my feed, and it was called 14 Ways to Start a Fire with no matches or lighters. I thought that was uncanny that popped up a couple of days ago, considering that this episode is my year without matches. And I won't go through everything that he uses, but I will put the link to the video because he does some of the ones we already know about, but then he does some really interesting ones. He does ones that I just had no idea that you could generate fire in certain ways. He does the fire piston. He does, obviously he does ferro rod. He does several different versions of, so he'll do the bow drill and then he'll do the fire saw, which is 2 pieces of bamboo and you're rubbing the bamboo.
With a bit of string?
No, you've basically got 2 pieces of bamboo and you're rubbing them perpendicular and you're cutting into one of the domed pieces of bamboo and the ember eventually falls through onto some stuff that you have underneath.
With bamboo. So that's what I'm interested in when you talk about these techniques. Does he get into the different, like the types of timber to use?
He does. Yeah, he does touch a little bit on it.
Which is specific to the region that you're in.
It is specific, but the good thing is he does name trees.
In Queensland, no? Where's this from?
No. This is a US video.
Yeah, so we might have them trees.
Yeah, well, he still says things like pines and stuff like that, and we do have versions of pines.
Yeah.
But he also says, and I think this is the important part, the type of timber that you have as the board, if you're doing the bow drill or even the hand drill, the board has to be a different timber. So the board needs to be a hardwood, I believe. The spindle, the bit that spins, has to be a softer wood like pine or something. You can't have 2 hardwoods or it'll just get slick and start that squealing, screeching sound because they'll just burn, heat up and then harden the tip. So you do need that softer timber that grinds and actually starts to produce dust.
Yeah.
He does touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Then he does a few weird and wonderful ones that I've never seen before. And he does a few kind of ones that aren't specifically geared towards bushcraft. He does one that I've been really conscious of. I use a lot of linseed oil at home in my woodwork. I put that on timber all the time. And I've always known that when you are finished with a rag that's saturated in linseed oil, you don't just scrunch it up and throw it in the corner because it will self-combust. Self-combust for absolutely no help whatsoever.
No.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, true. And so I don't chuck my linseed oil rags in the bin until they've sat outside for a day or two and just completely dried out and all of the active ingredients are dry.
Did you ever watch Inspector Gadget?
Yeah, yep.
Do you reckon that's what he used to write those notes on? And
that used to happen too fast because this took 3.5 hours to self-combust in his video, I think, or closer to 4 almost.
So it's on the video that it does it?
Yeah. He sets it there and he goes about doing other stuff and he just puts a time-lapse camera on it and then he has it in a box and then you just start to see a tiny bit of smoke come out and then it just starts pouring out and then this whole box just goes up in flames. It's as I say, it's not a practical method to take into the wilderness, but it's interesting to see. He does the little 9-volt battery with steel wool, like the tutorial that I did that time on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
Which I think's really cool because it's so easy. Yeah, and a few others. I won't ruin it all because I want you to go and watch it. But you'll definitely pick up something, and he's very honest in the time that it takes him to produce a flame and how he's going about it. And, there's one instance there where he completely gasses out trying to do, I can't remember if it's the hand spindle, the hand drill, but he just says, hey, I spent like 3 hours trying to make a flame with the other method and now I don't have the energy to do this method. But he's honest about it, and I think that's what a lot of the survival channels and stuff aren't honest about it. They make it look like the person was there for 3 minutes and got a fire going.
Oh, nice.
Well, that's a perfect segue to our guest tonight. We have mentioned her on the podcast very recently, in fact, on the last episode. She was unable to get together. She wasn't feeling 100%, and we're grateful that she's back in good health and able to talk to us tonight, and gave us so much of her time and so much information and fantastic insights into what she does. She spent a year in the Australian, I'll call it wilderness. It was a controlled environment, and you'll hear all about that, but that doesn't take away any of the hardships that she went through. So, Craig, unless you've got anything to add to that, mate, we can jump into it.
No, mate, let's get straight into it. I've really enjoyed talking to Claire, and I hope you guys enjoy listening to it.
All right, guys, enjoy. How you doing, Claire?
Pretty well. Yeah, a little tired from the end of my spring craziness. I just got back from guiding the Vision Quest on Monday night.
That sounds like tiresome work.
It kind of is in a funny kind of way.
Good stuff.
But it's been a very busy spring. So
yeah, that's good. I noticed I was looking at your all of your bookings today, and actually saw that you had a whole bunch you were just getting through.
Yeah, I'm just at the end, like now.
That's good.
So it's kind of time to rest and recover.
That's cool. Well, are you feeling a lot better? Because I did. Our listeners are well versed in your name by now. I think we've mentioned you on about 3 different podcasts. First time was when I discovered the book. And I was thinking today, I can't honestly remember how I stumbled across that. But I'm glad I did, because it just set off a really good chain of events. And then I, as you know, I got another copy of the book for Craig's birthday, and then we did a bit of a book review on it. But we didn't go into too much detail, because by then we'd already kind of secured you as a guest, so I didn't want to give everything away.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm glad there's a bit of suspense.
Yeah. So you
live up to the hype.
Hopefully we do too. Yeah. There's always that danger.
Yeah.
Claire, so I was thinking today, I was writing down a few notes. Actually, I've been writing notes for a while. And I didn't know how to introduce you, because I don't know what your title is. I don't know how you introduce yourself now, kind of post-book, post-year in the wilderness. What are you introducing yourself as these days?
Oh, I don't think I have a kind of neat little package. I guess there's a bit of a one-liner that says I'm a rewilding facilitator and an author and a barefoot explorer and mentor. And founder of Nature's Apprentice.
Very good. That'll do just fine.
That'll do.
That's way better than anything I had.
Okay.
That's perfect.
That's good. And can you tell us a bit more about Nature's Apprentice? Because I find that really fascinating.
Well, it was the original name for my book that I wanted to call my book.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was
wow.
kind of an old friend of mine. When I told her what I was doing, she was like, you're going to become Nature's Apprentice. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
That's good.
So I had that in my mind the whole year. It was like, I'm here to be Nature's Apprentice.
Yeah.
But of course, I didn't know I was going to write a book until I'd finished the year. And then when I told the publishers that the book was going to be called Nature's Apprentice, they had some other ideas about it. So then it became the business name. And it's the kind of foundation for the courses I run, both the rewilding and the more kind of soul-centric, nature-based human development courses as well.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely tap into that conversation a bit later on for sure. I'm keen to get a bit of information from you there. I don't mind the title you went with, though, to be honest. I said
catchy.
It's good, and it cuts straight to the point, and I think it also opens itself to a wider demographic, the people that perhaps don't read books like yours.
Yeah.
But that's enough to grip them.
Unless they pick it up and they think that they're reading about RSVP or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, that would have been a tough year, Claire.
Yeah, right.
A whole year without a single match.
Sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't want to have anything about Tinder in the title either.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. My year collecting Tinder or something.
My Tinder bundle.
So what is life like for? I mean, obviously we'll get to your adventure later on, but I just want to know what it's like now. Like what's your? I mean, you've just mentioned that you've got back from
What
some
have you been
courses.
doing?
Yeah, what are these sorts of things?
Yeah. Well, I guess life for me at the moment is a combination of writing, trying to find time to write this second book that's underway.
Oh, is this a scoop? Are you giving us a scoop?
Wow.
Oh, I'm not. That's a good question. Maybe I
think this
am
is
giving you a
good.
scoop.
I think this is pretty
That's
cool.
cool.
This was not expected. I like it. I don't even know about the book, so this is great.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to
Okay,
let
tell
anything
us
slip
more.
about the book?
Oh, okay. Well, sure. It's about exploring rewilding in the urban landscape. So kind of rewilding the urban soul is the current title.
Obviously,
looking
that'll
at
change at the last minute, like the last one.
probably. Even though I'm pretty kind of set on this title, no doubt it will. But yeah, exploring rewilding in a broad sense of the word in an urban context, because it's one thing to go out for a year and
Yep.
and have the luxury of no obligations, no responsibilities, no time pressures to really dive deep. But it's another thing to explore it while trying to live a normal life and earn money and live where most people in Australia live. We're one of the most urbanised countries in the world. So if we can't connect here in the cities, then we may as well pack up our toys and go home, because this is where most of us are living, including me right now.
Yeah.
So it's exploring you kind of like not just nature connection, but what's human thriving, which is really what the rewilding movement is about. Like, what are the elements that make up a good human life, like connection to self, connection to community, and to the wider non-human world. So that's essentially what it's exploring.
Claire, that'd be a natural progression, I suppose, coming back to the city after your adventures, and then, trying to place yourself and still have that connection with the land. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear how have you sort of made this work in your head, the rewilding from the urban side.
Well, you really do want the scoop, don't you?
I kind of do.
Spoiler alert. Well, look, it's been really challenging because I didn't live in a city for a few years after I left my year-long retreat. But for reasons of kind of work and love, I did find myself moving to the city, and it has been challenging for sure. Just mostly the pace of life, and that's really the biggest. I find the biggest block to connection is just the level of engagements and opportunities and back-to-back appointments, and so it's kind of a discipline really of saying no in order for the greater yes, which is a slower, more connected life. But yeah, certainly challenging, and I've been very lucky to find a place to live that is right on the river here in Melbourne, and it means that I feel that I have enough nature around me to be able to find a sit spot that feels like I'm in a wild place, and be able to walk for a couple of hours through reserve. So, Melbourne kind of offers these big, vast green spaces, and I've found a little niche here that certainly makes it a lot easier. And look, I'm actually really loving living in the city. I'm loving being in a place of such kind of vibrant culture and innovation and creativity, and
turning a tap on and clean water comes out.
Well, that yes. Although I've pretty much spent the last month on a property where you could drink from the creek, and
Oh, that's nice.
there's just nothing like it, really, to be able to just put your lips to the water, not even cup your hands, but like really get down that low and just drink straight from the creek, or drink while you're swimming. It's just pretty special.
Pretty primal too.
It is.
Yeah.
Can I jump back a second for any of our
Yes.
listeners who, well, the thing is the term rewilding gets thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
and I think everyone has a slightly different interpretation of what that is. Are you able to give us your version of it, just so that I guess
Sure.
they're clear of what
Yeah.
we're talking about?
I mean, most people get just an intuitive sense. Just the word rewilding itself is quite evocative, and it speaks to this remembering or reconnecting, this
Yeah,
kind of
most definitely.
returning or experiencing a way of being that is actually familiar to us, that is embedded in our ancestral bones, if you like. It's originally a conservation biology strategy of bringing top order predators back on the landscape, like they did in places like Yellowstone National
Yeah,
Park.
I'm very familiar with that. Yeah,
Yeah, incredible story of
absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome.
brought back the wolves, and it changed the entire ecosystem right down to the invertebrates in the creek.
Mm.
But people like me have kind of adopted it as another human movement, a kind of like, I don't know, like a neo-environmentalist movement, if you like, or having a fierce look at the modern human, the average modern human, and lifestyle, and like what are we missing in terms of thriving? Like what could we do well with picking up from our ancestral past? Looking at everything from what we're eating to how we're moving physically on the landscape, how our senses are kind of atrophied, and how connected we are, essentially. Like, what kind of relationship do we have to the more than human world, which is our primary place of belonging, really?
Yeah.
So it's re-looking at all those factors and kind of, yeah, if you like, getting back to some kind of like primal, original state of belonging.
Yeah. It's it saddens me at times to think that we need to use a term like that, because we've gotten to a point where we've removed ourselves so far from that environment that we now have to say, oh, everybody, we have to actively get back in such a short amount of time. It's a little blip on the timeline that we've just jumped from being, even early settlers of Australia, fully immersed in the landscape, and all of a sudden we're at desks in air-conditioned bubbles. It's really quite sad.
It is. Yep. And it's becoming clearer and clearer through all the behavioural problems and attention problems and kind of anxiety issues of kids and teenagers, and and not to say the physical symptoms that are screaming out for a really significant shift in our lifestyle and our values, really.
Yeah, and you see it reflected in, have you heard of we spoke about it last episode. Have you heard of forest bathing that they do in Japan?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so I find that interesting that somebody's actually said, oh, this is a thing now. I know it's been a thing for a long time, but this is a thing now. You've got to go back in, you've got to spend time in nature. And I think, wow, that just depresses me so much that people have to be almost given a prescription to go and do that before they'll go and act on it.
That's right. And in places in Europe, doctors are actually prescribing kind of nature therapy.
I was reading about that. It's horrific. I mean, I'm glad that people are being prescribed that over a box of pills. Don't get me wrong, but it does sadden me that it has got to a point where we have to tell people you need to go take a walk.
Yeah, and giving it a kind of fancy name and accredited courses to teach you how to kind of just hang out in the forest, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think going back to your earlier point, before I interrupted you on that, I like the idea of and I was certainly guilty of it myself when Craig and I first started hiking. We had this, well, can't speak for Craig, but I had this idea that, well, if you can't get out there for sort of 2 nights or more, it's not worth going. Like, we really liked that extended sort of 2, 3, 4 day stay. And after a couple of years, I kind of realized if you keep putting all your eggs in that basket, they're going to be few and far between, these adventures. And then you're not really getting that essence of what you're looking for, because it's not enough. And 4 days is not enough every 4 months, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
no, it's true. And look, I could go out for a 2 or 3 hour wander, just even out the back here of my little green space in Melbourne, and have a quite a significant shift in my perspective on life just from that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also think it's the way you set that up. I was reading another one of your blog entries today, and I think it's the way that you approach a situation, or you approach an outing. Like, I don't think you approach an outing, put it this way, I think we would say that yourself and us are sitting at opposite ends of a spectrum that's essentially on the same plane, if you know what I mean. So we'll go out into, again, Craig, I'm speaking for you, mate.
Go ahead, mate.
I hope I'm getting this right.
I think you're getting good at it.
We just tend to go, we just tend to go into the wilderness. We've got a route planned, but we don't have a defined kind of, how would you say it, spiritual or a philosophical kind of result that we're trying to get out of that journey. But after I get Craig lost and the shit hits the fan and things go really bad, we tend to come out of these journeys with some kind of, fantastic revelation, or some bonding, or some just something that's more than just going for a hike. But what I gathered from your the way you approach things, it seems to me like before you step foot on the trail, you tend to have something specific you're trying to achieve. Have I got that wrong, or am I half right?
I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, but I guess one aspect of that is the kind of the art of wandering.
Yep.
Which is really quite different from hiking from A to B.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, I love a good few day hike.
Oh, thank goodness, because you're on bloody Hike or Die podcast.
All right. Just thought I'd add that in.
Hey, listeners, she doesn't like hiking.
Love a good hike, and what I love even more is a good long wander.
Yeah.
It's setting off without a destination in mind, or ideally without a time or destination. Kind of on the micro or the macro level, and that's where consciousness really shifts. That's where I really feel a shift in my state of mind, because I have to be so aware of my surroundings. I'm taking cues from the landscape, and I'm following curiosity, or I'm following an element of surprise or wonder, and it takes me to all sorts of different experiences or connections with plants and animals and the landforms that going on a trail doesn't allow for, because it's still kind of often in that linear mind. I find I'm often more in my mind, my thoughts, when I'm on a set trail, because it's all mapped out for me. When I'm on a wander, then my senses really come alive.
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree with that. And there are times where I'm fortunate enough to wander around and not have a time schedule, and pretty much just be judged by, well, I want to get back to the tent or the campsite or the cabin roughly on dusk, but this whole afternoon is my own. I think it's a nice place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess if you've got a space that you can just wander and not have that sort of marching, hiking approach, you can achieve that. And a lot of our listeners live in the city. I mean, we all do, and you've got to make time for that. And I love how you call it discipline too, because I'm sure it is a bit of discipline too.
Yeah, I like that.
To make that happen.
Well, it's like a practice, it's like a meditation practice, for instance.
Yeah,
It's easy to let those things slide because there's always something else on the to-do list.
Absolutely.
But just that feeling when I shut the laptop or put down the cleaning or whatever I'm doing and just head out without my phone, without a watch, and just head out onto the land here. Oh, such a joyful feeling, such a relief.
Yeah, that's something I think is, I like that, Craig. I like that you picked up that word discipline. It's just like doing exercise or something. And Claire, you just pointed out a good thing that there's always something on that to-do list. And I think we would tend to prioritize going for a walk, and it would keep getting bumped down the list. And I didn't do it again today. I'll move it to tomorrow's to do. And I didn't do it the next day. And I keep bumping it because it's not as important. But I think the long-term effects of that are significantly more important than, watching a YouTube clip.
And I'll be the first to admit that I don't do a lot of that sort of, as you say.
You should, Craig. It's good that you're being honest for a change.
I'm very honest. I don't do that.
Bringing out a lot of honesty here, Claire.
Yeah, but there's a high degree of authenticity here. I'm detecting.
He's got a beer in his hand. Don't get too authentic.
Not too authentic. There's that, you got to achieve that. I go out for fitness for a run or whatever, or I go for an overnight hike where I'm on my own and I'm focused on some sort of success in that and not just letting it be peaceful. So I respect that. I haven't looked at it like that, and I can see how coming back to where you're at the moment, you're trying to deal with finding that place in the urban society. I like it, yeah. And I kind of, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about your book, but for me, I did find a lot of it was there was a strong drive in there. You were driven for success a lot in what I was reading, that you'd put a fair bit of pressure on yourself, even though you're talking
you got
now.
a hard head, Claire.
Yeah,
you're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah,
I like that.
You went hard.
I'm pretty determined when something
really
really presents a challenge that I'm engaged in.
Yeah, you're talking about this meandering sort of strolling through the wilderness right now, but I could imagine that you were very focused on what you were doing. And
well, I was, but some of the focus was like, right, I'm going to wander all day. I'm going to wander for 2 days. There was a lot of spacious time.
Yeah.
Before I jumped into your adventure, let's just call it an adventure, to put a label on it, can we go back to what life was like for you before that year? I know you touch on that pretty heavily in the book, but whilst I was reading the book, I was thinking of so many things I wanted to ask you. But obviously you can't in book form. But hey, I've got the author here, so I'm lucky.
Right.
Well, life was pretty good. I was working for the Wilderness Society and living within a great community in Newcastle. But I'd also started to feel quite a strong calling, I guess is a appropriate word for it. A calling to explore the mysteries of nature and psyche, being called to solitude, and also started studying wilderness survival skills and and kind of shamanic practice, and both of those aspects really appealed to me.
What made you start even investigating that? What made you even pick up a book or have an interest in the survival skills?
Well, yeah, it wasn't a big leap, I guess. It was, I got an email talking about this course called Nature Philosophy that talked about bushcraft and kind of expanded awareness and, like both the physical and the spiritual side of the whole idea of kind of nature connection, I guess, and being in the bush. And it was just an immediate yes. I needed to kind of get back to the first love, really, which was always nature, that drew me into conservation work. But then it quickly turns into political wrangling rather than bush time.
Yeah, some of the kind of scenes that you paint of you in a this little office with just surrounded by paperwork and emails and phones. It would. I love the way that you painted that picture, because it was almost, again, I'd have to say, it was almost sad, like, reading that part, and in a way kind of I feel that a little bit myself. And it was sad to hear you talk about how you had this realization that sitting in that office sending emails and is not really getting out and actually fighting for your cause like you once thought it might have been.
Yeah, definitely. It quickly turns into into office-based conservation work rather than being out there, which is what drew me to it in the first place. So yeah, it was quite a strong calling to kind of leave that world behind and discover these other parts of myself and explore a more immediate, visceral, intimate connection with nature.
Do you find that your friends were predominantly kind of thought you were very odd, or what were their kind of reactions to you saying, hey, there's this sort of thing I want to get into? Or do you already have friends that were
look, it wasn't
that way?
really that big a leap. It was, what was hard was moving away from activism, because that was my tribe.
Right.
So I guess the kind of the only concern in that way is a feeling of like, well, you're abandoning ship.
Yeah, right.
You're jumping ship on the whole project here, this thing that we care about so much. How can you go off and, stare at your navel out in the bush when there's work to be done?
Yep.
We were all nature lovers, so they kind of understood the draw in that way. But yeah, certainly I felt some level of guilt for jumping ship.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it definitely came across in the book that you were there to do something good, and then you felt like you didn't want to be there anymore. It was interesting. And it also struck me that I don't remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, was there ever a definitive moment that kind of set the wheels in motion for this? As you were saying before, you started off with the survival courses and you were just edging towards it, but was there ever a moment where you just was it that moment where you were laying on the floor or something from memory in the office?
Oh, right. There was a series of moments, but the one I write about is when I've just finished a kind of political action and the media's trying to call me,
That's
and
right.
I'm just laying on the floor thinking, nope, just not going to take that call. And realizing I was pretty burnt out.
Yeah. And was that, in the scheme of things, was that the final straw, or was that leading up to something more significant?
It was, there was an equal kind of force of something pulling me towards it as me pushing away the old life. So it wasn't kind of like a breakdown. It was just as much being allured by something that was far more exciting.
Yeah, right, because I hear Tom asking this question, and I've heard him on a similar podcast with another adventurer that loves his solo adventures, and Tom asked whether it's the wild calling him out there or whether it was him wanting to leave or being a bit misplaced in society. And I guess that's where I hear Tom leading you. Do you think it was a big call? I hear you say it's a big calling for you to come into the wild and get out there rather than the society pushing you away. What do you think?
Well, I would say it was mostly, it was a shift in my stage of human development, really. Like if you look at, kind of a life cycle of a human, it was me moving into a different life stage. So it was just like a natural progression. And definitely something kind of pulling me towards it.
Yeah, I bet.
That was more that I would say that was more the momentum.
Yeah, for sure.
What were you looking for? Was there something specifically that you at that time? So, before signing up for this, was there something that you thought you were looking for? But perhaps that's not what you achieved in the end. But did you actually know what you were setting out to do?
Look, what I was passionate about was experimenting with much deeper states of awareness and just this experiment of what would it be like to really put myself in a situation where I was reliant on my own wits, on my own skill, on my awareness, and how would I deal with boredom or solitude, or I wanted something to really challenge me. I mean, in hindsight and in the big picture, what I was really doing was this kind of self-initiation from adolescence in a way, even though I was 30, but most people never really grow out of adolescence. I was looking for some way to kind of really initiate myself, like some really strong experience that would test the psyche and show me something of my core, who I really was, and what my gifts were.
And that couldn't have been maybe something a little more palatable, like a week in the bush or 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, no, for me it needed to be longer, and I don't think initiation really happens in a short space of time. I think it happens over a period of time. Really,
the guy that Craig was alluding to in a previous podcast said that he goes on adventures anywhere from 70 to 85 days hiking, and he says that it takes 3 weeks to sink in that he's actually out there alone. And I think sometimes I think after a 6, 7, 8 day hike that I'm out there and everything's cool and I'm alone and everything, but then I realize once I get back that I acclimatize so quickly back into life with all my bad habits that I realize that that probably wasn't enough time away.
Yeah, it takes a while to kind of slow down and drop in and really start listening.
Do you like the old Claire? I mean, do you think that she's a person that you've grown away from so far that you wouldn't want to be that person again? Like, what's your relationship with thinking of yourself as a person before this experience?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, it certainly grew me up, I would say, or it certainly catalyzed quite a growth period. So aspects of myself back then, I'm really glad that I have, for the most part, kind of moved on from, like being such a high achiever, maybe perfectionist, being quite harsh on myself and others at times. I just feel much more kind of loose and comfortable in my own skin, and trusting of life, trusting of life's unfolding, and I guess I feel like there's a wisdom there now that there wasn't so strongly. Yeah, definitely feels like kind of adolescence versus adulthood in a broad sense of the word. But sure, I appreciate that young woman's passion and determination that got her out there in the first place, and that wrote a book, and takes a lot. I appreciate her courage.
Totally. Well,
she got you where you are. So
good
on you.
She did.
Via a true initiation, as it sounds, and I think that's exactly what it was.
I was just about to say trial by fire, but it wasn't really trial by fire. It was not a trial without fire.
At the start.
Well, I think trial by fire, with or without fire, is a really good way to describe it.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect segue now to actually, if you don't mind, just laying out what it was that you embarked on, and what sort of things that included, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yep. So yeah, it was a year-long residential, very loosely facilitated program that there were 6 of us who signed up and lived on a private property over 4 seasons, surrounded by kind of bushland. So we had a lot of area to roam. And essentially we were to put into practice wilderness survival skills and nature observation and awareness. We had some teachers come in and teach us various skills and practices, and then it was kind of a choose your own adventure. So building our own shelters was the start, which was quite a challenge in itself. And then it was really up to us how we spent that year.
Yeah, it was. I really liked when the teachers came, because and let me just get it straight. And I've said this. I'm not just saying this to you. I've said this to the listeners before. The book, the way the book is written, is fantastic. It's not just a fantastic book; it's the way that it's written. Would you agree, Craig?
Oh yes.
Because I said to Craig, mate, you got to read this book, but just stick with it, mate, because you're going to think you know what it's about. Then you're going to realize you have no idea what it's about. And then at some point you'll come back somewhere in between and go, this is taking me on a tangent that I like better than the thing I thought I was getting.
Yeah.
That's the most confusing description I've ever given anything on the podcast. But I'm going to stick by it and say it's bang on.
No, there was a lot more emotion in the writing than I was expecting, and it was, yeah, as I said before, it was very you had a lot of pressure on yourself, and you could just feel that it was a lot of tension throughout it, and I really, I kind of, it dug deep, and I really like it.
Yeah. So back to my point, whenever these teachers would come and teach you guys, then the story would just jump into this. The pottery lady would come, and then you'd be learning about this, making pottery on the fire, and all of a sudden there's this whole buzz around pottery, and it sounds like the other people there, everyone's just focused on this pottery. And then I can't speak for how long, weeks or so later, there's somebody there and they're talking to you about wild edibles or something like that, and all of a sudden everyone's just focused on that, and the story just kind of erupts into that. And then all of a sudden there's somebody there teaching you about tanning animal hides, and everyone's just focused on that. And it was just lovely just to jump into so many facets of what I consider to be all part of getting outdoors.
Yeah. It's a bit like speed dating, kind of bushcraft skills.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Have you retained a lot of that knowledge, would you say?
Yeah, I certainly feel like I've retained the knowledge that I learnt that year, and it's, each skill is a lifetime of study in and of itself. So, I'm still tanning hides, and I'm still learning about bush food, and I'm still learning about fire. I just learnt of experimented with a new material last week. But still, I feel like a beginner at all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it, I think. You're really trying to melt together all of these skills that, as you say, that guy that just specifically spends his whole life tanning hides is at this kind of master guru level. And you can really only hope to pick up as much as you can. And I mean, you picked up enough. You got a cool little shirt. I've got. Is it the one on the front of your book when you're up in the tree?
Oh, the deer hide top.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see where it's hanging right now.
Oh, really?
Oh, awesome.
I was surprised you weren't wearing it for the show.
Right, that's right. Well, since it wasn't video, I put on my synthetics.
Well, that's all she wears now is just hides.
Yeah,
that's right. All around the city.
That's what we're expecting.
No, I wasn't probably expecting all of that this I could actually go back a step and say when I read from the cover, I was expecting something slightly different. I thought it might be more of a very solitary, alone experience that I was going to be reading about. And initially, to be honest, I was slightly disappointed to hear that there was this small community of people that you were with. And then I realised that there was so much more for you to write about. There was these, as Tom was just talking about, all these little things that you learnt through bushcraft. There was relationships that you had with some of the people.
Oh, that was the best. The gossip and stuff was the best.
The gossip. And then I'm sure that you actually really built up these solitary moments where you could just talk about the bird calls. And I just went, wow, this is, quite a broad spectrum of stuff that you've written about. And yeah, so can I talk about the cover? Because I think it's one of the most amazing covers I've seen. If you don't spoil the illusion for me and tell me that is actually part of Off the Block, is that a photo from the block?
Yeah, so that's the second edition for that cover. There was a different cover on the first one. Yeah, that's a favourite place of mine that across the creek, so not on the property, but not far away, and it's a heathland. And there was a few of these kind of small gum trees that stuck up above the heath, and it was a great sunset spot. So I'd climb a tree and watch the sunset, and the photographer certainly made it look higher than it is.
Their job.
But
Claire, I'm just so pleased to hear that it is from the block, because and you hadn't staged it some other place in the world.
No.
It's beautiful. I really am drawn to that cover. I think it just paints a really nice picture. So yeah,
it does. It does speak 1,000 words, really.
Does.
My two eldest boys love it. They love that cover.
Oh, great.
They picked it up and said, "Dad, what's this book about?" And I said, just read the title, mate. It's pretty much all there.
Yeah.
I said to him, my eldest, as I was walking out the door, he's 10, and I said, "Who am I going to interview tonight?" And he goes, "Oh, that lady from My Year Without Matches.
That crazy lady in the bush."
Because I was watching, was it a TED Talk you did? Did you do a TED Talk?
I didn't do a TED Talk.
No, what was that? What type of talk was that? You were on a stage.
Well, done a few, but maybe if it was video, it might have been.
It was video, yeah.
Mind and Its Potential.
That was it. Yep. I mean, very similar kind of setup as a TED Talk, I guess, is what put me off. But I happened to have that playing on the TV one day. It was probably nearly 2 months ago now. And again, the same boy walked past, and he'd only have seen that little picture of you on the back, and you were talking away. And then I think the cover or something came up in the background. He goes, "Oh, I can't believe it. That's that lady from your book." So he didn't realise I was playing it through through YouTube, so he didn't realise. I said, "Yeah, I put it up there." But I'm sure this book will go into his hands at some point in the near future.
Great.
I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and because I think it's important. I think that there's this factor that the people want to put labels on things, and people want to say, well, oh wow, it's either give it too much emphasis that you're female and that you've gone and attempted this, or I don't know, it's just a real kind of stigma around females doing this. Your group was pretty balanced, wasn't it, from memory?
Yeah, it was three men, three women.
Yeah, it was exactly balanced. Yeah, well, I think I think there's a lot of people out there that I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but I think that a lot of people would have discounted. Well, first of all, as a participant, a lot of people would have said, "Oh, well, I can't do that." But I just like the fact that you got out there and did a bloody good job, equally good job. Some would say better job than some of the guys in some respects. And I know that wasn't your goal at all, but I think what's important is that still showed through. And, we're pretty big advocates for, women getting out there and showing guys how it's done in the outdoors. We've had some fantastic female guests on the podcast before, and all of them are, badasses that get out there and do stuff that we kind of wish we could do. But
right.
I mean, at any point does that come up in conversation, or is that something you're conscious about, or are you just on your journey and you're just doing what you do and you don't
Well, it's
care?
funny when you said elephant in the room, I'm thinking, what's the elephant? I had no idea what you were going to say. I was thinking, maybe we're going to talk about fire or something. Yeah, look, it hasn't, I guess because it's, it's not an experience like I'm hiking up Everest or something. It's got less of a feeling for me of something unusual.
Okay.
But when I went to research, other stories of women having kind of long periods of solitude or practicing bushcraft, or there was very, very few published stories, especially in Australia, about any kind of like women's adventure in the bush. Really very few. So I found a few from overseas, and of course there's Robin Davidson's Tracks, which is epic adventure.
Yeah, top book, and not so good film, but excellent book.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it didn't really kind of occur to me to be, feel unusual in that way. But I certainly felt passionate about providing some kind of story to inspire other women to attempt something like that. Or
I think that's what makes I think that's what makes it so much better. Is at no point through the book did I feel like you were out there flying this flag. The way you wrote the book, the way you're honest about everything, which I think it works better. I mean, you've worked on campaigns, right? That was your job. I've worked in advertising for the last 10 years or so. I know what it's about to kind of get together, some kind of story, and then try and play that story to get the result that you want. But at no point did I feel that we were being sold out or anything through the whole book. And I think that the authenticity of it was, Craig, would you agree that it was scarily honest? Like, you just left no stone unturned with how you're feeling and your emotions and everything.
Yeah. I think it was definitely, it did have quite a women's perspective. And if I could just sort of take Tom's question a bit further, if we look at it as an initiation, do you think that there is a difference with how much maybe men feel a need to initiate as they approach adulthood, and is it different for women needing to have an initiation?
That's a really good question. Essentially, no. I don't think there's a difference in certainly not in the need or the kind of movement towards initiatory experience. I think both men and women are equally drawn to it. But yeah, perhaps there are some different ways that men and women are drawn to initiation.
I'm sure you were reading some books while you're out there of some amazing women who've done some, but I think looking back in history, it was mostly men who went through some brutal initiations to become, to reach their...
At least that was more documented, I guess.
Well, I guess so.
That's right. I mean, there was definitely... like throughout different cultures, different ceremonies for men and different ceremonies for women's initiation. Often they all did include some kind of ordeal or challenge to oneself, but in different ways. But yeah, I've certainly noticed, and I don't know whether it's cultural, but men being really responsive to learning how to hunt, and that being a really kind of important skill to learn.
I was really lucky. I went to a school where in year 10, our home class, there was four sports classes in the school. So our class went for 4 weeks away from our parents into a retreat, which was in the bush, and we would do some survival and some hiking and climbing and all sorts of stuff. And in some ways, I guess that was an initiation, as the school would put it to us. But I really dig that we've had this chat to you tonight about how this was an initiation for you, and I think it definitely was. That's how you looked at it as you went in, and I think we all need to consider how we've initiated adulthood.
It almost doesn't exist anymore in our culture, at least. I think, unless you say it's everyone going out and getting rotten drunk and falling over and not remembering the night, if you class that as some kind of initiation, which I certainly don't.
Well, where is it? What
else is
well,
there?
I think that what that speaks to is the awkward attempts that young people try and initiate themselves because they feel something.
Yes.
They feel some need, some movement towards risk taking and adventure and altered states of consciousness. And without any guides or knowledge
it's misplaced. Yeah,
it's misplaced. So it's it's drinking and it's fast driving and it's something lame like going on a gap year to London, like rather than kind of something that might actually really shine a light on their essence and their gifts and their uniqueness.
Yeah, you said the word ordeal just a minute ago, which immediately made me think of what did you call those times? I think it happened twice throughout your year where you would go and spend was it 24 hours without seeing another person, talking to another person, or was it 4 days or something?
The Vision Quest.
Yeah. Okay, Vision Quest. So how long did they go for?
Well, traditionally they're 4-day ceremonies where and I've just arrived home from guiding 14 people through a Vision Quest, and it includes 4 days and 4 nights out fasting alone.
Right. Yep.
So that's a kind of pan-cultural ceremony, but it's definitely got Native American roots. And it's a strong experience.
Man,
that's insane.
Yeah, I do intermittent fasting on a much smaller scale, and psychologically messes with me. Once Craig and I took 2 muesli bars each and some tea and coffee and went into the bush for 4 days, and so we weren't intentionally fasting. It was just outside of those those 2 muesli bars each, we had to forage and get whatever we needed. But there was definitely, I came out of that I learned a lot about myself and Craig and both of us together and all sorts of things.
Our self-made initiation right there, wasn't it?
I think it was.
4 day though.
I mean, if that had been solo, it would have been insanely challenging. I was lucky enough to be able to turn to Craig and say, on at least one occasion each, we were basically on our backs. Sort of 2 days in, shaking and
for sure
withdrawals and stuff.
Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that it was at the level that you're talking about because we were consuming food, but it gives me some insight into the deprivation that you're putting yourselves through.
Yeah, walk us through what you've just been through.
You tell us what that's what
the Vision Quest.
Yeah, the Vision Quest.
So how did you set these people up? How do you guide them?
Were they separated or
industry secrets away?
Yeah, they were definitely separated. They find their own site, and it's a kind of like an 11-day program, 4 days of which are alone. And there's quite a bit of preparation, like getting clear on their intent, and we really work individually but in circle with getting people clear on why they're doing this, because you have to have a pretty strong reason to make that sacrifice.
Is that to ensure success or to help them get ready for this thing they think they want to do?
Definitely to help them get ready for it.
Yep.
and to ensure that they get the most out of the experience, because you could waste 4 days really, unless you're really working with some clear intent.
And what are they trying to get?
Well, it really differs. I mean, different stages of life. Often there's, people maybe in their early 30s or something really wanting to make a significant, strong shift into full adulthood, like really moving into their vision, stepping out of old childhood patterns, marking transitions is often a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting much clearer on what their priorities are and gaining confidence in themselves and really stepping up into their power is kind of overall the general theme.
And you described a scene where you were in a circle for days. Is that what these people have just gone through? Is it similar to that?
That's right. Yeah, they're in a circle, and they stay there for 4 days and 4 nights,
Wow.
and then when they come out, we help them land and tell their story and mirror back their story as we hear it, and
Jeez.
yeah, it's definitely a life-changing experience.
And so they have no shelter. What happens if there's bad weather or anything like that?
They take out a personal tarp.
Okay, to
and
just hunker.
sleeping gear and rain gear, water,
Yep.
obviously.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense. Wow.
And then they have a system of like buddies where they don't see each other, but they check whether they put like they have a little safety mechanism to check whether they put a rock in their
Yes,
box.
I remember reading about that.
You did that too, yeah. That's
cool. So I guess for the listeners, so correct me if I'm wrong, if you've gone and put a rock in that place, then another person can see that you're still okay because you've got up and put a rock in that place. Is that a sort of that?
That's it.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right. Now, in the lead up to this with these people, is it also an opportunity for you guys to assess their kind of their psyche and make sure that they are undertaking this and that they're going to come out safe at the end of this and not kind of mentally disturbed or scarred?
Yeah, I mean we have a screening process before people arrive, so no one should be arriving who's not suitable to
Right, yeah. Okay.
to take the program.
You've already gone through that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Hey, it kind of brings me to another thing and the sit spot. Do you want to explain to us first of all? Actually, I want to tell you a story first, Claire. How's that?
Okay.
You get a break. When this book arrived, by the way, I have an autographed copy.
Yes.
Very good. To Tom in Wilderness, Claire Dunn. How cool is that?
Very nice.
So I've got this autographed copy, and when that arrived in the mailbox, I was excited to receive it because I'd read a snippet on your website, and I was immediately captivated. I don't know why. I just don't. It's not something I normally do. I don't scour around and do things like that. So it's interesting that we're having this conversation. But what I decided off my own back was when I had this book arrive, I was determined to be reading it in the right state of mind. So what I did was I have this this bench seat, which is under this liquid amber tree. Are you familiar with those? They look a bit like a maple tree kind of thing.
Yeah, I know them.
Beautiful tree, and I've got this bench seat right underneath it, and there's a little stump next to it. And so every morning I'd get up, and early in the morning I would go down and I'd sit in this chair and I'd have a coffee next to me and I would just read. And I live on 3/4 of an acre, so lots of bird life would come through in the mornings, and I'd often get interrupted by birds above me, or my dog would come up and want to sit on the chair with his head on my lap and all this sort of thing. And then it was after getting a certain way through your book that you started to talk about your sit spot, and I thought that's hilarious that I've without reading this book, I'd already set up a system where I was going to have my sit spot where I only read your book so that I could kind of get as authentic as I could while I was reading it. So you want to explain what the idea or what the purpose of a sit spot is or was in that 12 months?
Yeah, no, it still is, still a current practice. Well, the sit spot you can kind of think of like nature's classroom, where somewhere, one spot that's like your anchor point that you can go to as regularly as possible and sit with all your senses open and really observe life moving around you. Somewhere quite wild, or a park or bushland, and really get to know it well. Get to know the birds, get to know the plants, the edible plants, the weather, all times of the day or night, and start piecing together the ecology of the area. And that spot will teach you way more about nature and about yourself than, months of moving through different landscapes that you can't kind of piece together the patterns. So a sit spot provides that that kind of anchor to piece together the bird language and the seasonal indicators, and it becomes like a sacred spot, a sacred area that's a real refuge and a classroom. It's a teaching place.
Yeah. And can you tell us about your particular spot? Because that's pretty cool.
Oh, the spot from the
book.
from the year. Okay. Yeah. Well, it was on the edge of where the kind of forest met more of a wetter rainforesty area down towards the creek, and it was sitting on the upturned kind of fallen tree, the root ball.
And there's a photograph of that in the front cover, isn't there? That's what that
there
is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. And yeah,
have you seen that, Craig? Sorry, that's
right.
what she's referring to.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a fantastic place where I could observe like canopy birds and spore birds bathing in the crevices of the tree that had fallen, and the wallabies passing by on their feeding route, and at night bats and possums and owls, and it was incredibly rich.
Do you think that I've got this I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast that Mother Nature doesn't care about you as an individual. Like, it doesn't care whether you live or die, you fall over and decompose and go back into nature or whatever. But after spending so much time in that sit spot, how did you find that? What do you think your place was in that environment? Do you actually believe that through your time there that you became a kind of equal part of that environment as, say, the birds that visited every day, or the frogs, or the goannas, or whatever? Do you think that you were on a par with those, let's call them regulars?
I wouldn't say I felt that kind of sense of that level of belonging, but certainly I feel that I put my roots down there and was accepted into that place, if you like, and developed relationships that, I would like to think or imagine or feel that they were reciprocal, beneficial, not just to me, but to the place itself, because I was offering my attention and reflecting back beauty, like really appreciating what was around me, appreciating the birds and the plants and the animals and the sky. And, I believe that the world is, a sentient kind of a place, an animate place that responds to that kind of attention and that kind of a gratitude and appreciation.
That's a good answer. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I've got one more question for you, Claire. And I'll ask it as best I can. Do you think that now given what you're currently doing with Nature's Apprentice and taking people out into the wilderness, do you think that you're doing more for wilderness conservation now than you were when you were actively kind of working on those campaigns? Do you think that the jump to where you are now is a better place for you?
It's definitely a better place for me. I wouldn't say there's like a sense of more or less benefit for the wilderness. It's more like I'm occupying my ecological niche. So this is where I'm best placed. I'm best placed addressing the human-nature relationship and healing the separation between humans and nature. Someone else is probably much better placed doing the kind of on-ground political lobbying and the conservation work that I was doing. But this is definitely where I can make the most change because this is where my gift is.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a case of kind of one's more effective than the other. It's really a case of each person has their own ecological niche.
Yeah.
That's some creative, unique gift in the world, some presence that only they can bring. And I'm just glad I found mine.
Yeah. I always believe that if you're encouraging people to put a value on wilderness areas, then you are in fact setting up a kind of wider network of people who put value in those spaces and will kind of carry that torch forward for you, or simultaneously, rather than they're not introducing them to the wilderness but expecting them to fight for it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it unless you're in love with the world, unless you have a connection to a place or just a connection in general to the natural world, there's no real impetus to do anything about it if it's under threat.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I absolutely love what you've been doing, Claire, and I have a special place out the back of mine that is a bit of bushland, and although there's a fair few mosquitoes, I am claiming it as a special place now, and I'm taking heed of some of your work. So
great.
Thank
it's been
you.
a pleasure to chat to you both.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. I know that you've had a big week and that you're worn out, so we'll let you go there. But we'll put all of the details in the show notes on our website so people can find Nature's Apprentice. They can buy your book. They can also keep an eye out for this next amazing book that you're currently writing.
Yeah, yep. Hopefully not too far off.
Very good. And I hope that means that we could potentially talk to you in 2020 and maybe have a chat about that and that
That'd be
direction.
fun.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Thanks so much,
very much.
Claire.
If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, we'd really appreciate your ratings and comments if you can spare the time. If you'd like to know more about Hike or Die TV and keep track of our adventures around Australia, make sure you drop by HikeordieTV.com. That's where you'll find all the information you'll need to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or Pinterest. As always, we appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.